we are once again here at Ozarks Homesteading Expo 2024 here on our set right here in Marshfield, Missouri. And to this man to my left, although he needs no introduction, we'll give him one. This is Joel Salatin with Polyface Farm, one of the speakers here, and in fact, I'd say the keynote speaker here at the expo. And many of y'all may know who he is. If you don't, you need to get out from under the cave and out of the rock you're living in and kind of get out there and, come out to one of these events. But Joel, I just want to say welcome to the set of the Farm2Table Direct Show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a delight to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, Joel, listen, we were talking just a minute ago about, y'all's history a little bit there at Polyface Farm. I know we know you didn't start in Virginia. Y'all kind of came here, in fact, even from out of the country. And if you could share a little bit of that with us.
It's a very unique story. So my dad was in the Navy in World War II,
okay,
and came out as a veteran, and on the GI Bill went to Indiana University. He was from Indiana.
Right.
Went to IU, got a degree in business and economics, business administration. And as a teen, he had decided, I want to farm. He really wanted to farm, but you don't have any land, you don't have any money. What do you do? And so he concocted a plan to go to a developing country and start a farm. Well, where land is cheaper.
Right.
And so, how do you do that? So anyway, he got his degree. Then he went to Middlebury in Vermont for a semester in Spanish, hitchhiked from Vermont to Mexico, and lived with the family for 6 months, came back and sat for the Foreign Civil Service exam in Spanish, passed it the first time, and got on with Texas Oil Company as a bilingual accountant in Venezuela.
Wow.
This was 1948, 49,
right.
The beginning of OPEC, the beginning of the oil exploration. And because it was an American company, but so the administration and management was all done, by Americans, but the workers were Venezuelans.
Right.
And the tension was always about money. So they wanted these bilingual accountants to be able to deal with the money. 7 years, he saved up enough money to buy a 1,000-acre farm in Venezuela, and by that time, he'd married mom. They had us two of us boys. I had a younger sister later, but anyway, started farming, started selling chickens. The dream was, let's do chickens and dairy, and so he started selling chickens. And all the indigenous chickens had subtherapeutic pneumonia from lack of hygiene, open sewers and just not
right.
clean. And they all had this snot, nasal drip from there. And so the middlemen were always looking for clean chickens. And when Dad, those Latin American markets, the town square,
everything's live.
Yeah, everything's live, and you got these vendor stands,
right.
and the farmers come in. Well, in just weeks, Dad literally cornered the local chicken market because our chickens were clean. They didn't have the
drip,
snot,
right? Keep
the
them
drip,
healthy.
The nasal drip. And so the farmers accused us of witchcraft and some sort of voodoo.
Yeah.
Yep, voodoo. And then a couple of years later, then there was a junta. Which is, what happens a lot in these countries, and in 1959, and when there's chaos in a country, it gives license for scores to be settled that wouldn't be settled under normal conditions.
Right.
And so basically, it gave license for us to be run out of the country, and we fled the back doors. The machine guns came in the front door, and lost everything.
Wow.
And so that was our Venezuela experience. So Easter, we stayed in the country for another, 8 or 9 months, while Dad met with every, ag minister, interior minister, secretary of the treasury, whatever. And nobody would give us the time of day. And so there wasn't anything to do but to walk away and leave it. And Dad was 39 at the time. And I remember when I hit 39 thinking, man, if I lost it all, would I start over again? So that's how we ended up in Virginia. Both Mom and Dad's families were in the Midwest, but Dad had been there 12 years. He loved the country. He loved the people. He loved the culture. Loved everything about it. And he was still hoping when things settle, we'll go back, because that was his whole life equity investment, dream.
Right.
And so rather than settling in the Midwest, he wanted to be within a couple of hours of DC, to where if things settled, he could be within hours. He could be at the Venezuelan embassy, sign papers, and we could be back. And of course, that never happened.
Right.
But that's how we ended up in Virginia.
Okay. Well, so Polyface Farm. I mean, it's the farm of many faces, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So how did y'all come to that? I mean, I know.
Yeah. So so we come to this rock pile gully, armpit of the community. It was cheap, and the question is, well, how do we make a living on this little farm? And didn't see a path forward. At least Dad didn't. I was just 4, so I didn't. He didn't see a path forward at the time, and so Mom takes a job as a school teacher. Dad takes a job as an accountant for a firm, and of course the outside income pays for the farm.
Right.
So by the time I'm a teenager, now the farm's paid for. Right. Every penny went on the mortgage. Went on the mortgage. And so I'm a teenager, and I got my first chickens at 10 years old, and I just loved it. I loved the farm. My older brother was a mechanic, and he wanted to go fly airplanes, and my younger sister wanted to go other places, and so I stayed on the farm, loved the farm, and I'm scheming. Dad never made a living from the farm, although that was his dream. Now I'm dreaming, how do I make a living on the farm? And so Teresa and I got married. We lived in the attic apartment and lived on $300 a month. Drove a $50 car. Didn't have a TV. Still don't have a TV. Never went out to eat. Never went on a vacation. Anything. And in a couple of years, so I'm working out. I'm working at the newspaper in town, and still, how do I make a living on this farm? How do I make this work? And within 2 years, we had put together enough nest egg that we could live for 1 year, because we had a big garden. Teresa canned, 800 quarts of stuff a summer. We lived out of the garden. We had our own firewood for heat. We didn't have any debt, didn't have any very much expense. And so September 24, 1982, I came back to the farm full time. Remember, Dad was an accountant. Right. And so he said, well, for tax reasons, we need to incorporate. And so we said, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to name ourselves? And so we thought about it. And so I proposed Interface Incorporated, the open land, forest land, and water, those 3 great environments, Interface. Right. So we submitted that, and State Corporation Commission, there was already an interface in Virginia, so we couldn't be that. I remember I was out milking the cow. I'm out there milking the cow, Dad comes in with this letter. No, SCC turned us down, and I'm sitting there, oh, shoot, can't be Interface. Can't be, what can we be? And it just struck me, well, we could be Polyface, Many-Face. Forget the Interface, be Many-Face. We both liked it, and so that's how so it's the farm of many faces, because we knew that we wanted to do multiple things. We wanted to be a very diversified multi-enterprise operation, and this would give us that.
Well, there you go. I mean, just kind of out of necessity, out of ingenuity.
Yeah.
And I was listening as you were talking about the different things and what you and your wife went through to be able to get there, and it, to me, it lends to the advice you still give people. And could you share some of that? I mean, as far as frugal living and that. Yeah,
well, I mean, the thing is, a dollar you save is worth about $1.40, because you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Right. There you go.
And so this frugal living is really critical, and especially when you're starting out, to keep your living expenses low. Don't drive to town. Clump your town trips so you only go once a week or every other week, and grow your own food. Look at your expenses and say, well, what can we do ourselves here, and start paring that down so that you take your cash needs down. A lot of people don't realize, for most of Teresa and I's married life, we've been under the poverty level as far as cash.
Right.
But we grow all of our own food, we grow our own meat, we have our own heat. We don't have expensive tastes. And so we feel like we live like kings, even though from a cash perspective, we're, a lot of our lives we've been in the poverty level.
I haven't, that I always joke, because I'm around farmers a lot. It's like they got a ton of stuff, but no cash.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Farmers are cash poor. Their equity's tied up in land and equipment and buildings and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, Teresa and I, all the time we laugh. Man, if we didn't have a farm, what would we spend our money on? And that's what people do. They spend money on Caribbean cruises and bright shiny objects and Netflix and all this stuff. And we don't have any of it, and so we can live very, very cheaply. And for me, I think at our where our culture is, I would rather defund the government than defund the police.
Oh, absolutely. I think that'd be a pretty popular sentiment throughout most of the country.
I think it would be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, listen, you're speaking later this afternoon on a very interesting topic as orthodoxy versus heresy.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So it struck me, heresy, of course, is what people got burned at the stake, back in the Spanish Inquisition. And of course, we know what the orthodoxy is. And it struck me how many things, I love history.
Right.
And it's, as you look back in history, isn't it amazing the number of things that our ancestors thought were normal or were axiomatic even, that now we say, how could they have believed that? I mean, like, really, the earth was flat? Really? I mean, that was the majority opinion at one time. Or the bubonic plague is caused by spirits, and then they found germs or whatever. And so there, slavery, that's a big one. Okay. Slavery is fine. No, it's not fine. So there are numerous things throughout history. And one of the most recent ones, if we come up to today, is hydrogenated vegetable oil.
Right.
I mean, that was what you cook with.
Right.
Blue bonnet margarine and it's not nice to fool Mother Nature and all this stuff. Now, not only are you not supposed to limit your intake of that, you're not supposed to eat any of it. And we're going back to butter and lard and olive oil and coconut oil and things like that. So the hydrogenated vegetable oil, it was another big one. Anyway, when we look back, we see these things and we say, how could mom and dad, or how could they have thought this? And it struck me, in 100 years or 200 years or 500 years, what will those people look back at us and shake their heads and say, man, I can't believe they said this. I can't believe they thought this.
Right.
And so that's going to be kind of the essence of the speech. There'll be a lot of humor in it.
Right.
But it's all about what does the orthodoxy believe today that will not be true, and the chances are, as we know throughout history, the future, often more than not, makes the heretics correct.
Right. It's only a conspiracy theory until it's true.
Yeah. 6 months after the conspiracy theory, it's the truth. Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm gonna look at some of that today.
Okay. Well, that will definitely be very, very interesting, and there's so much, like you said, that can go that direction. And I was talking with Zach Bauer earlier today, and I mean, I'd read this the other day and it may have been on something, I'm not sure, but the first grocery store, 1946.
That's right.
That's less than 100 years ago.
That's right.
And where did we get our food then?
Well, the first supermarket. The first supermarket. We had grocery stores, but we didn't have what we would call today a supermarket until 1946. And there are lots of people still alive that remember 1946. It wasn't that far away.
We're not that far removed from the family farm, or people growing their own, and that's one of our things we always talk about is shortening that food chain, the distance between you and your food. Right. But so Joel, I appreciate that. I mean, you got some interesting history about yourself and just kind of what folks can look forward to today at out here at the expo. I know you make several of these throughout the year. What do you see as the benefit that these do for the homesteading community?
Oh my, there is nothing like getting together with your tribe.
Right.
And I say that with every reverence. I'm not being, funny or silly, but we're entering like a TikTok culture,
right?
And people are starved for physical interaction, touch, hug,
yep.
and so these, I call them shindigs. These shindigs give an opportunity for the tribe to get together, to fellowship, to encourage each other, because out there, for many of us, it's pretty lonely. You know, family thinks you're crazy. You're what? You're leaving the city and you're going out where bears live out there. You know, Papa John's won't deliver pizza out there. How can you live out there? You know, and so many of us, our day-to-day life in this kind of alternative universe is fairly lonely.
Right.
And so when you come here, you find, oh wow, there's lots of people that are interested in self-reliance and in building a parallel universe and disentangling from things. I feel right now like the whole world. You ever have a wasp nest on your back porch? You know, it's up there, a little wasp nest, and you go in and out, and you go by it all the time, and you just look up, and these wasps, they're just kind of chilling. You know, they're just hanging out. Once in a while, you see one go, but most of the time, you wonder what in the world are they doing? You know, up there, and then your wife says, you know, honey, we ought to clean up the back porch. And so, you know, you get the brooms and you get stuff together and you start cleaning up the back porch, and you accidentally hit the rafter with the broom handle. And suddenly those wasps, they don't come after you yet, but suddenly they're all up, and their wings are kind of half open. And that's, I feel like the world is like that right now. Like we're like a disturbed wasp nest. A lot of people, they don't know what knocked their rafter, but they're saying something hit my rafter. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I'm not sure where I need to go, but it's like that. And these homestead fairs give us not only, you know, friendships, but tools, the infrastructure, and all of that to know where to fly and where to move.
That is great, and that is a great analogy, because I know I've disturbed more than my fair share of wasp nests, but and it is culture that way. Well, listen, I appreciate your time today, Joe. We appreciate it. I know our listeners will enjoy this, and you know, it's been great to be out here with you. We're having marvelous weather.
Yes.
And but anyway, it's been great, and we're so appreciative of your time. And folks, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a Luddite. I don't even have a smartphone. I'm still flip phone world. But everything is through our business, Polyface Farm. Okay. And so if you just about the time you get to POLY, it'll probably pop right up. You know, we've got books and events and my speaking. If you want to catch me somewhere, it has my schedule on there, as well as, you know, if you want to buy product or any other things. It's all through the Polyface Farms website. Okay, well, awesome. Well, I'm going to ask one final question. Okay. Where do you see the future of homesteading going with the culture that we're in today? Yeah, I see it. Well, you know, I wrote a book. My last book is Homestead Tsunami. Right. And I think we're on a tsunami. You know, I've been in this space for decades, and I have never seen the excitement, the enthusiasm. I mean, you know, there have always been. Well, look, we had the kind of back to the land movement of the 1970s, Vietnam era. You know, beaded, bearded, braless. You know, the whole Mother Earth. You know, thing. Right. Thank you. And yes, this one right here. This is my latest one. Yep, Homestead Tsunami. Homestead Tsunami. This is the why of homesteading. Good for country critters and kids. There you go. And so we had that back to the land movement at that time, but this one is different. That was done primarily by a bunch of, you know, beaded, bearded, braless, you know, just drop out of culture. This is done by conservatives to rebuild the culture. Right. And that's a very different vibe. Right. I know that's something we've said multiple times on our show, is that, you know, we were searching, you know, we seen what was going on, 2020, everything happening. Right. But we found when we came into the homesteading community, it was seeing people living the solution. Yes. And so I think that's such a big part of that. Yeah. And that's what we enjoy about it. And I think that's why this has legs. and it's just going to increase. There are these fairs are springing up all over the country. I'm going to a lot of them,
Right.
but they're not attended by 100 people.
No.
It's thousands, and I think it's just a completely. I think the mainstream media is completely missing this kind of guerrilla undercurrent of the country. This movement is saying, you know what? We can't fix stupid in Washington.
Right.
And so what we've got to do is get out here and build our own communities,
Right.
build our own whatever, self-reliant, independent, parallel universe, if you will, and start rebuilding the civilization from the ground up.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we are. And so I think this has real staying power because it's anchored in the truth.
Absolutely.
And the truth has staying power.
Absolutely. Well, Joel, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom that you've imparted to us. And folks, you can find him, Polyface Farms. Go out on the web. You can search it. Find the lunatic farmer right here, Mr. Joel Salatin. And folks, as we promised, wall-to-wall coverage here at the Ozarks Homesteading Expo. And as we promised, in-depth interviews with some of the great people that you've heard about in the homesteading community. And listen, like we've always said, we're stronger together. So get that hashtag. And keeping it local. Those things are there. And as we're talking about, this is living the solution. So until our next interview and our next coverage here